What's up, YouTube Revolution? ZombfectedGaming 349 at your fingertips. Today is not my usual video, but I want to talk about two film franchises that are not from the same genre at all, and are two very different worlds. And these two genres are my go-to most favorite genres of my life, both in film and in video games. Here we got The Walking Dead, a post-apocalyptic horror drama thriller, and with elements of action thrown into the mix as well. Which this can be very similar to one of my most favorite post-apocalyptic video game, Dying Light. And here we got Fast and Furious, a crime action racing drama, which is very similar to one of my most favorite games such as Watch Dogs and Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row. I'm just pointing out the similarities these films have in common with my most favorite games I played so far in my life. So if you're gonna say I forgot to say Need for Speed, don't get me wrong, I love Need for Speed as well. It's just I played Grand Theft Auto, Watch Dogs, and Saints Row a lot more in my lifetime. Alright, so let's get back on topic. The reasons The Walking Dead and Fast and Furious have a lot in common. Also, let's point out that The Walking Dead is a TV series which has been on since 2010, and Fast and Furious is a series of movies that has been going on since 2001. So let's take a trip down memory lane. The Walking Dead back in 2010. In its early years, 2010. Some of us people think that this is another zombie horror film, and us horror lovers are like, yes, let's watch this. It's pretty basic, a zombie horror survival show. It's following its formula of a horror show about zombie killing. Alright, 2001, Fast and Furious, a movie all about illegal street drag racing, and that's mostly what it's about, but throw in some crime in there as well. But it's the main plot is about racing. So here's The Walking Dead all about the zombies. Zombies are the main villains, and they introduce that humans are a bigger threat than walkers later on. So there's a lot of human drama early on, and they sometimes start fighting with each other. But around season 3 of The Walking Dead, that's when they introduce that the humans are mainly the focus. So we get the line for season 3, fight the dead and fear the living. So The Walking Dead went from being a horror show to a horror show with war movie elements, with the introduction of the humans as main villains. So we still got the original element of the horror of the zombies in there, but this extra element of war changes the series as it goes on. So, with Fast and Furious, the car racing is the main element, and crazy car driving, like the amazing tricks, like stunts especially, the ones that Brian O'Connor and Dominic Toretto can do. This can be somewhat mirrored of what Rick Grimes and Daryl Dixon do on The Walking Dead. Only that these guys can do some crazy creative zombie kills. So let's just say the creative zombie killing and car racing tricks are very similar, even though they are not. It's just because those are the main elements to both The Walking Dead and Fast and Furious. But let's talk about how later on Fast and Furious becomes less about racing and more about crime, and eventually more into somewhat war and cyber terrorist attacks, but also keeps that same racing element in there for part of the movie, since that's what they were all about. This is what I mean. These two franchises go through drastic changes, and it almost like changes its identity of what they originally are. And to be honest, I love it, since this makes these two franchises so unique, and that's why they both have something very much in common. Alright, let's also talk about the characters and the cast of both of these franchises. And they do share a lot in common, and what makes it is
these people are my family. I don't have friends, I got family.
That's right, family. So in season 1 of The Walking Dead, Rick Grimes is looking for his family and meets up with the Atlanta camp group and finds his family, his son Carl and his wife Lori. And some of this group doesn't really like Rick Grimes at all. Well, particularly Daryl Dixon, because Rick handcuffed Daryl Dixon's brother to a roof and left him there in Atlanta. But also in Fast and Furious 1, Brian O'Connor is a undercover cop and is also an illegal street racer, and he keeps it a secret when he meets Dom Toretto and Mia Toretto. But eventually later on, when Dom finds out that Brian is an undercover cop, he is pretty furious about it, and it makes them at times not get along. Just like how Rick and Daryl in the early parts of The Walking Dead did not really get along either, just because of how Rick handcuffed Daryl's brother to a roof. But later on, in both franchises, these people become so tight that they call each other brothers. Rick Grimes and Daryl Dixon, and also Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor, do so much for each other that they are literally like family. That's what they all have in common. Alright, so let's talk about how Rick Grimes and Brian O'Connor can have similarities to each other, since they are both cop characters. Since Brian was a former cop at times in one of the films, he always senses when something is wrong, like how a cop can tell when something just doesn't seem right. That's exactly what Rick Grimes will do also in The Walking Dead, but sometimes Rick and Dom will have more in common because of their inspiring speeches of how Rick is the leader of his group, or shall we say family, since Rick said these people are like my family, and if something that you're hiding hurts them somehow in any way, I'll kill you. And Dom is the leader of his family crew as well, just like how he said, I don't have friends, I got family. Also, let's talk about the villains of the franchises. Some have somewhat in common and somewhat really don't have much in common. The villains in Fast and Furious seem to be easily forgiven for what they have done in some movies, and the next movie after, they are redeemed and join Dom's team to fight the next villain. But with The Walking Dead, not so much. When a villain's story arc is done in a half season or a couple season run, Rick and his group aren't so forgiving. They will kill their enemies when they get the chance to do so, since this post-apocalyptic world isn't very forgiving and can really change people into monsters, more so than the zombies are at times. This is why they call the show The Walking Dead, since you lose your humanity in such an insane world that it makes you feel like a dead man walking. Just like when you go to war, you aren't living, you're surviving. So you feel like you're a dead man walking, since you can die at any minute during war. But what makes a particular villain somewhat in common with a Fast and Furious villain? It is Negan, a man who runs a massive group of people known as the Saviors, and is a major enemy to Rick and his group, and eventually they get into a action-packed all-out war in one of the seasons, and it ends off with Rick actually sparing Negan's life. But the rest of Rick's group isn't so happy about it at all, due to a major event that Negan took part in doing. This is what I mean, not so forgiving. So Rick locks Negan up in a jail cell and tells him he's gonna rot in there for the rest of his life. Kinda almost like how Deckard Shaw in Fast and Furious goes to jail at the end of a film as well. But eventually, when Deckard gets out, he joins Dom's group and helps them out against the next villain. Same goes for Negan. Negan gets out of jail and eventually tries to help Rick's group fight the next villains called the Whisperers, which are a much bigger threat than what Negan and his saviors ever were. And even when Negan was a major help and seemingly looked like he redeemed himself, some still won't forgive him. But some do forgive him for what he has done. Even Luke Hobbs in Fast and Furious was a villain, then after he joins Dom's group as helping them out and immediately forgave him. But with Negan, even years after bad things he has done, some still hold grudges against Negan. And this is all why I would say The Walking Dead and Fast and Furious have so much in common, even though they are drastically different genres. But as they evolve more throughout the series, they really change up their identities with new tones and, most importantly, of course, family. That's all I wanted to say. So if you like gaming, you can subscribe to my channel, and ZombfectedGaming 349 over and out.